Welcome to Things You Don't Know.
This is going to be a very surprising and different topic.
There are moments in history when everyone rushes in the same direction. Flags flying, drums beating, certainty roaring.
And then there's the person who just doesn't move.
Or worse, in the context of the moment, moves against the tide, calmly, conscientiously, knowing exactly what it's going to cost, but being true to their conscience.
Today's story is about one woman, one vote, and two moments when America chose war.
And she said no,
Not once,
But
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 twice.
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 Let's start somewhere that might surprise people. Montana.
Montana is famous for white skies, cattle, rough politics, and unexpectedly, the first woman ever elected to the United States Congress. Montana was living up to its progressive reputation. Montana had granted women the vote in 1914, and Jenny Braskin was elected 18 months later.
Now, this happened in 1916, folks, 4 years before women had the right to even vote nationwide. Jeanette Rankin, an ordinary woman, was elected to the U.S. Congress.
Jeanette Rankin ran on a platform that included support for child labor laws, the U.S. income tax, and food safety laws. When Dr. Neem, when you were saying this was in the time when meat in particular was often tainted.
Yes, meat and milk were tainted. That's Upton Sinclair's famous work, The Jungle, talking about that.
Now, Jeanette Rankin wasn't born into power. No political dynasty, no gilded salons.
She grew up watching her mother run the household and her father work himself into the ground to death in copper mines. And she absorbed a radical idea very early on. Power wasn't about dominance, it was about responsibility.
She achieved a master's degree in social work. She traveled extensively. She saw poverty up close and personal.
And unlike a lot of reformers, she didn't become cynical.
She became disciplined, focusing on the agenda her constituents wanted. She was almost stubbornly moral. She would soon have to confront a world war.
Yes, April 1917. Europe is on fire. World War I has been 3 years of slaughter.
And at this time, the United States felt that it just had to get involved because of Germany's submarines, the Zimmerman telegram, and Wilson asking Congress to make the world safe for democracy.
And there's Jeanette Rankin, duly sworn in, sitting in the House chamber.
The roll call begins.
And one by one, the votes are stacking up. Yes, yes, yes.
And when her name is called,
Congressman Rankin stood up, determined to be heard.
and said, I want to stand by my country, but I cannot vote for war.
She becomes one of just 50 members to vote no.
And instantly, she's a symbol.
To some people, she's a traitor. To others, the conscience of the nation.
Newspapers mocked her. Colleagues scolded her. They said she was too emotional, naive, unfit.
Very prejudicial attitude toward women in those days. The funny thing is, she wasn't emotional at all. She was calm, rational, and consistent.
You know, 2 years later, Rankin loses her seat. That was the price for voting against the war.
Well, she may have lost her seat, Dr. Weaver, but she did not retreat.
She campaigns for child labor laws, an end to the poll tax, for social welfare, for women's rights of all kinds that don't disappear when the banners come down.
And she never backs away from pacifism.
Which in the 1930s starts to look unfashionable.
Because fascism is rising all over Europe and history is getting loud again.
The day after the Pearl Harbor attack, the day that will live in infamy, as it was called, Congress met to give a direct response.
Pearl Harbor was smoldering. America was unified in grief and rage.
And Jeanette Rankin is back in Congress. She was reelected in 1940, 21 years after her first loss.
The vote to declare war on Japan is introduced.
And this time there is no debate.
And when the clerk calls her name, she votes again. No.
She's the only one in Congress to do so.
The House erupts.
Members shout, reporters swarm, photographers bang their cameras. Police have to escort her out for her own safety.
She later explains,
As a woman, I can't go to war, and I refuse to send anyone else to do the job I can't do.
And that sentence puts an end to her political career.
and interestingly, cements her place in history.
Now here's the hard question here.
Was she wrong?
History doesn't give us easy verdicts.
World War II had to be fought, or so we thought.
That's right, so we thought. But Rankin was not voting on strategy. She was voting on principle.
She wasn't saying, I don't see the danger. Hitler and Tojo and Mussolini are not evil. She was saying, I refuse to surrender the core principle of my conscience to the crisis of the moment.
And that kind of clarity makes people pretty uncomfortable.
Because it exposes the cost that we accept as inevitable.
As with many other leaders, she forces us to ask, is moral consistency a luxury or a responsibility?
You know, Jeanette Rankin lived to be 93.
She watched Vietnam unfold with heartbreak.
And in her final years, she told young activists something deeply old fashioned but very real. Don't compromise just to be practical. You'll lose what made you begin.
No statues, no great redemption arc.
Just a woman who voted her conscience every single time.
Jeanette Rankin didn't fade quietly into history.
No, in fact, in her 80s, most people are slowing down, but she was gearing up for one last fight.
What else would it be? Another war, this time in Vietnam.
By the late 1960s, the war had become the defining moral crisis of a new generation.
And unexpectedly, that generation found a patron saint in an elderly woman from Montana.
They called themselves the Rankin Peace Brigades.
Thousands of women, students, mothers, veterans, nurses, marching not in abstract protest,
But under Rankin's name and under Rankin's rules.
The movement was strictly nonviolent, disciplined, relentlessly moral.
In January 1968, the Rankin Brigades marched on Washington.
Their demand wasn't chaos or withdrawal at any cost.
It was something far more radical and far more conservative in the deepest sense. They called for Vietnamese neutrality enforced by United Nations peacekeeping force. See at my Vietnam Peace Plans podcast to learn more about that.
Yeah, she wasn't looking for American domination.
Not a communist conquest either.
But she wanted an international guarantee that Vietnam would not become another battlefield for great power ego during the Cold War,
It echoed Rankin's lifelong belief
that peace wasn't passivity, it was structured accountability based on law.
The brigades understood something that policymakers refused to admit.
that neutrality only works if someone strong enough agrees to defend it.
Rankin believed the United Nations and the principles of international law, imperfect as they were, was exactly meant for moments like this.
She stood with them, frail but unyielding.
An old woman surrounded by younger women asking the same question that she asked in 1917.
Who speaks for the people who will die if we're wrong? You know, friends, things you don't know isn't always about heroes who win.
It's about people who stand.
Even when standing means standing alone.
Jeanette Rankin didn't stop any of the three wars she fought against.
But she reminded us what courage can look like when it refuses applause.
And sometimes that's the bravest vote of all.
You're absolutely correct, Chandler. I hope you've enjoyed this new spin on a lesser known but vital leader in American history. Please come back, give us a like, comments, subscribe. Come back soon, folks. Bye bye.
Bye for now, folks.
Bye for now.